What's going on, everyone? Happy Thursday to everyone. Hopefully, everyone is doing well and having a great day so far. It is time now for the Thursday edition of the Climate Weather Update for Thursday, February 8th, 2024. If you're new to my channel, this is where we do the daily weather forecast for the United States. We talk about climate stuff going on around the world, weather records, extreme weather, and today we are going to be talking about the U.S. snow cover, the latest U.S. drought update, and the weather forecast for the next several days through next week, which includes the threat of severe weather this evening in portions of Illinois and a snow threat in the Northeast for next week. If you enjoy this type of content, give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and share this with everyone you know. All right, starting off today, thought we would take a look at the U.S. current snow depth. And you can see here, there's not much snow cover to be found across the U.S. Taking a look, you can see the Northeast, there's a little bit of snow cover, but nothing terribly impressive, and the majority of it is away from the I-95 corridor. Great Lakes, not much. Midwest, bare ground for most areas. You can see South Dakota has a little bit of snow cover, as does Minnesota, but really nothing impressive. You have to go out to the Rocky Mountains, and even there, though there is some snow cover, it's less than there normally would be for this time of year. The bad news with that is less snow cover means less snow to melt come spring, less runoff, not good for the reservoirs, increases the threats of wildfires. So we want to take a look at the latest drought update. You will see there have been some slight improvements in the south, mid-south U.S., down the deep south, and I think that is going to continue. When we take a look at the forecast, you're going to see down here that there's a lot of rainfall expected over the next week or so. We still see drought conditions continuing in the upper Midwest, the northern plains, some slight drought conditions, and in the Four Corners region. And I think some of this is going to continue to be ongoing. I am concerned about places that are not getting as much snow as they normally would. That could lead to drought concerns come spring. Not much of any issues in the Northeast right now, and just ever so slight issues in Florida down by the Tampa Bay area. Let's take a look at the national satellite picture. You can see here there is a storm system that is in the upper Midwest, in the northern plains, and there's a southern jet down here. It is noticeable down here across Texas and across portions of the southwest, and that's something we're going to have to watch as we go into next week. That is going to get active once again. And you can see general cloudiness continues in the west. Not bad weather in the east, but some clouds will start to be introduced into the picture over the next couple of days, as there's going to be a warm front that lifts north, but it's only going to get so far north. Taking a look at the latest radar picture, you can see the storm system that is over the upper Midwest. That is what's going to trigger the potential for a few isolated severe storms in Illinois this evening. You can see in Arizona, rain at the lower levels, mountain snows, heavy mountain snows in the upper levels. Taking a look at the national hazards map, you can see there are winter weather advisories up in the northern plains and across portions of the Rocky Mountains. The rest of the country is relatively quiet today. Taking a look at the precipitation forecast, days 1 through 7. Remember how I was saying where there's still some drought in the south? I think there's going to be more relief. Take a look here, days 1 through 7. Because of multiple waves that's going to come along the southern jet, you have the potential through the next 7 days of anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain with isolated 4-inch amounts of precipitation. And now this is not all coming at once, but as we get into the weekend, there could be a threat of heavy rain, especially on Sunday down around Louisiana, where you also potentially have a severe weather threat as well. Not much in the way of excessive rainfall expected. However, here you go. You can see here day 3, as we start to head into the Saturday time frame, there is a slight risk from Texas through to about Tennessee, which includes northern Alabama, central Mississippi, and northern Mississippi, portions of Louisiana, and Arkansas. Taking a look now at what is going on with the Storm Prediction Center, you can see here there is this marginal risk of severe weather, which includes Chicago today and portions of southern Wisconsin and extreme eastern Iowa. There could be an isolated tornado, isolated wind threat, maybe even an isolated hail threat. Now let's advance this to day 4. And on day 4, what you will see here is there is a slight risk of severe weather already on day 4 for portions of Texas, Louisiana, and southwest Mississippi. That is something we will have to watch. There could be isolated wind gusts, could even be an isolated tornado with that. So something we'll have to watch. It's 4 days out. The models are still changing around on that, and for a convective event, that's a little bit far to be talking about. Let's take a look at the latest HRRR model. We want to take a look at what goes on later this evening, just a couple hours from now, in Illinois. And you can see here, a few isolated severe storms do get going. Wouldn't surprise me if there was an isolated tornado warning from this. There could be a spin up with some of these discrete cells, maybe some hail, maybe some wind damage. It's not going to be a widespread threat, but it's something we have to watch because look where it tracks. It does go into the Chicago area. And this is a fairly strong area flow pressure. There's a little bit of wind shear with this, so of course it's something we have to keep an eye on. Let's go further out in range. Now we're taking a look at the latest 12Z NAM. You can see in the Rockies, there'll be areas of snow that continue. This system will then continue east, and look what happens here as we head into Saturday afternoon. You can see a boundary sets up. There's a warm front in the northeast. Still undecided how far south that warm front sits, because some of the local stations in the Philadelphia market, I noticed because I live here, are still going with 60 on Saturday. Modeling, some of it is saying, no, it's not going to hit 60, it's going to be in the 50s. We'll have to see how that actually plays out. Taking a look here, you can see this boundary that sets up from the southern jet down in the south. You can see here, some areas of training do try to set up, and there will be a heavy rainfall threat. And take a look at this as we head into Sunday night. This system right here, this is the one we have to watch. Is it going to go straight across like this, transfer and come up? Is it going to go more north? Well, let's take a look at the latest modeling on that. Here's the GFS. Remember yesterday for this system I was saying I was favoring that it would end up being more north and it would be an interior snow threat? Well, look what the GFS decided to do today. The GFS decided, mind you, we're talking about a storm system that would impact the mid-Atlantic Northeast next Tuesday at this point now. Look what happens here. Transfers pretty far south. You can see the low actually is transferring over to Carolinas, North Carolina, Southern Virginia, the Delmarva. Look at that. Yes, with a further south track like this, you do introduce colder air. However, there's a reason why it's doing this, and I want to show you that. Let's go to the 500 millibar. On the 500 millibar level of the GFS, you're going to see multiple things here. First off, let's start off with hour 108. Take a look where this energy is positioned. This is the southern stream energy. Take a look here. I'm going to backtrack this several runs. Watch what happens here. And you can see here, hang on. There we go. Let's backtrack this. Keep backtracking it. At one point in time, the GFS said this energy would be much further east and that northern stream energy would be phasing in. Therefore, a more inland track. It phases quickly. It comes up, warm air races in, but look what happens here as I'm going back. You can see that energy has trended slower. Also, with that trending slower, look what happens here. These two pieces of energy don't really phase together all that quickly. Matter of fact, it doesn't happen till it's well east of the east coast. Because of that, the northern stream energy is actually acting as a suppressant. You can see here as it's moving in. See what happens here? It's preventing the storm system from getting too far to the north. At this time, I don't think that is going to happen. Yesterday, like I said, I was favoring the storm system would be more north. Well, let's see what the GEFS, the ensemble of the GFS says. Here's the storm tracks. Let's advance this. Now you can see here, we are coming out here to Monday now. Look where it tracks. It does track more southward, but you can see here, it also at 12Z, you can see here, it's trying to come northward of its previous run. You'll see that a little bit better in the precipitation. Take a look here. Here is the 12Z precipitation we'll go hour 132, which would be 24-hour precipitation for all day of Tuesday. Look what happens. Here's the 12Z run. Look at the previous run, which was even more south. It's trying to correct itself back to the north. You can see here, it's come back a pretty good ways to the north. Still though, if this track was correct, that would be a snow threat for places like Baltimore, Philadelphia, even New York City. Mind you, 132 hours out. Is this going to change? Yes, it's going to change. Let's see what the latest European says today. Here's the Euro. the Euro is more north than the GFS at this time. You can see here, the transfer actually occurs a bit further inland, right near DC, Baltimore, over to Delaware. But look what happens here. Even on the European, you do change to some snow at the end for portions of New York City, some snow showers at the end for Philadelphia. But look here, uh, places in New England, like Boston on Northwest. That is some fairly heavy snow for you, and that is a rather strong storm system that gets going. Let's advance this a little further, and you'll see here, it does get relatively strong, and you're talking 6+ inch snow potential should that happen. But mind you, this storm system, it's moving relatively quickly. Is it actually going to get this organized? Well, there's some modeling that suggests maybe not so fast. Let's take a look at the latest 12Z Canadian model that shows yet another solution into the mix. Here's the 12Z Canadian. You can see here, what transfer? We're now at hour 114, and this is actually a little bit faster. You can see at hour 114, the low is kind of weak, not a lot of moisture. It's right near Atlantic City. You're raining almost all the way up to Interstate 90 in New York. Just south of there, I mean, it's rain. Take a look at this. Now you're at 12Z Tuesday. I mean, not very much moisture to show for this, and it just rapidly moves along. Look at this again. It just rapidly moves along. So there are three solutions being shown by the models. The GFS solution is being backed by its ensemble at this point. However, what I think is more likely to happen is we will probably see it shift back north. Will we see it go as far north as it once was? Hard to say. But the Euro did come south of the 0Z run last night. So we're seeing some sort of a compromise set up. So again, anywhere, and I'm going to include Philadelphia at this point, anywhere from Philadelphia through the Albany area, central Massachusetts, Boston up into Maine, keep an eye on the system for early next week. You could see a rain to snow situation, you could see a snow situation, because the cold air, it's not all that far away, and that northern stream energy is going to help bring cold air down with this storm. So initially, it may be too warm, but it is going to get colder, and should this track far enough to the south, there would be the threat of significant snows somewhere in this area. Of course, we'll have another update on this storm again tomorrow. Let's go back to GFS. Let's take a look now at what happens in the longer range. And continuing the operational GFS here, you can see the weather gets colder. Look at this. Now we're into late next week, the next weekend, and you can see here, very cold air is moving down in the U.S., and look at this. Remember we talked about this the other day? Yet another threat. Sometime between the 17th and we'll say the 21st of this month, there could be another wintry threat. Could be a system that ejects out of the Gulf. Multiple models are showing this. It's just a question of, will northern stream energy phase in with this? Remember yesterday we were saying the southern jet's going to remain active? Here you go, right here. Look what the GFS does. Now, obviously, this is going to change on the next run, 246 hours out. But I'm just showing you the idea here that the southern jet, it's going to remain active. It's going to remain favorable for storm systems to continue. Can we get one of these northern stream pieces of energy that come down to link up with it? I think it's possible at some point you could see something happen. Let's take a look at temperatures here. You can see for the rest of this week, above average is going to continue the east. And then as we head into next week, take a look here. You can see some colder air. Colder nights are going to occur middle of next week and on. And watch what happens here as we get into the longer range on the GFS. You can see some relatively cold air with high temperatures that are near freezing from DC on northward, and that is going to continue into the long range. You will get some days that are in the upper 30s to low 40s, which 40s at this time of year would be around average. But you can see here, the colder air continues. Look at New England here. Now we're into the long range, really far out, GFS. That's some really cold air up into places in the northeast. All right, for the rest of the country, let's go back to the GEFS for a second, and I'll show you here the precipitation chances beyond next week. And you can see here, there's that next system. That one that comes after early next week, that's the mid-month one that I'm watching. It's even showing up on GEFS. That's relatively impressive, but you're also seeing on the West Coast, look at this, precipitation chances. Yeah, they start to get introduced for you again, and seeing 24-hour precipitation chances in the mountains show already half an inch at 234 hours out. That's a pretty strong signal for yet another, look at this, it just continues, it continues. It's a pretty strong signal for yet another potential atmospheric river. Of course, it's really far out. We have a lot of time to watch that. We still haven't figured out what's going to happen with this storm, the Northeast. Hopefully, we'll have some more definite answers tomorrow, and we'll have another look at the extended long range. If you want to follow me when I am not doing videos here or in between videos, you can go to my Twitter account, Climate Data Report, and that is at Climate Data, capital RPT. Climate Data Report was not available. They wouldn't let me go long enough, so there you go. If you enjoyed this update today, give this video a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel down below. Share this with anyone who wants to share it on social media. Share it everywhere. We'll have another update tomorrow on the potential storm in the Northeast for next week. It's going to happen. It's a question of where does it track. We'll have an update on the potential severe weather in Louisiana and, of course, everything else in the country. I will see you all again next time. Until next time, enjoy the weather wherever you are. Have a fantastic Thursday afternoon. And thanks for watching.